Good morning, everybody. It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. And I woke up this morning thinking about the Philadelphia 76ers situation and Ben Simmons, Doc Rivers, and the whole gang over there. Um, my my point of view this morning is just looking at Ben Simmons. I think about Markel Fultz. I think about Jaleel Okafor. All of these guys got there under the understanding that losing is a strategy to gain value and talent. Process is what they called it, right? Now, when you do that, yes, you get the young talent. But what they did also was they kept the coach that went through the process of the losing. The guy they hired to do the tanking, they let him have the keys to the car when they got the process in place. And I felt like even though Brett Brown was a good guy to have in terms of personality, from what I saw, he looked like the type of coach guys want to play for. He also had issues navigating the roster that was very limited with a lot of young talent and turning them into the overnight success that they were expected to be based on the sacrifices of several years of deliberate losing. I believe having him in place got those players off to a bad start, to be honest with you. But I think also removing him from the team and replacing him with Doc Rivers, I think it did some damage to Ben Simmons. I do. Now, to what capacity, I am not sure. But as bad as Ben Simmons looked out there yesterday, I'd never seen him play that poorly. And I don't think most people have. He didn't play that poorly under Brett Brown. As many issues as he's had shooting the rock, we've never seen him look as uncomfortable as he looked out there in that game 7. And I know that some of the pressure might be the fact that it was a game 7, but I can't help but remember the fact that I've seen Ben Simmons play at his best, given 42 points, big rebounds, big assists. I've seen him do it. I've seen Ben Simmons play confident. He doesn't suck. What we saw out there last night was somebody who was going through something, who didn't have their head in the game. I couldn't help but continue to watch that play at the end where he passed the rock to Matisse Thybulle instead of dunking on Trae Young's head. To me, that looked like a guy whose natural inclination is to pass the rock, and he was on autopilot in that play. That's what I gathered. Now, it could have been that, or he could have been trying to avoid the free throw line, from which also was a very serious malfunction in his game during this process. Shooting 34% from the line throughout the 7 games was the worst in NBA history for a playoff series. He also did not shoot a single shot in the fourth quarter throughout the entire process of the series. 33 minutes of play, no shots attempted. Now, when he refused to shoot threes throughout the entire beginning of his career, in my mind, that was telling. That was telling of a player who had something going on subconsciously. You've heard me talk about Kwame Brown and some of the struggles that he had early on. And I know it's not popular to mention these struggles because of how successful he's been, but he is the prime example of what Ben Simmons is going through. That self-consciousness, that level of looking at yourself and not being able to focus on what you're doing because you're too busy, uh, watching yourself fail. Like I said, I've been there. I have that type of problem myself, so I know it when I see it. Ben Simmons was going through that. It's a deep, deep um, insecurity type of thing. It's like a crisis. Trust me, I'm telling you. As somebody who suffers from this, I know it. I know it very well. And I've described this to you before, and I believe that's what Ben was going through. I believe that's what Kwame was going through. It's just it's something that speaks to your your psychology, your mindset. It speaks to um, being terrified, more or less, of failure, or being terrified of what you perceive as failure, over magnifying that failure. See, that's something that a lot of smart people have. When you're intelligent and you have a lot of you have perception and a vivid imagination and a vivid creativity, you can tend to make things a lot worse than they actually are. So for a guy like Ben Simmons, to me, it looks like it's like a very difficult fear of missing shots. Shooting percentage speaks to needing to be a perfectionist, needing not to make mistakes. If I'm to dig a little deeper, in my mind, that comes from possibly being disciplined a certain way, to where you feel like if you make a mistake, all hell breaks loose. Like it speaks to somebody who's been traumatized in the form of, you better be perfect. I, I would rather you not take any shots than miss any shots, because any shots you miss, it's like I cut off your arm type. Like, I'm telling you, I don't want to dig too deep, but when I see a person who refuses to take a shot, it's like they're afraid to miss. And even though the strategy of things, the logic tells them that missing is better for them than not attempting to shot for a plethora of reasons, they still can't bring themselves to do what strategically makes most sense to overcome whatever it is that they tell themselves, or what has been embedded in their head about being perfect. See, Ben Simmons wants to win, so he's going to have to overcome the idea that missing shots is an initiator of success, or excuse me, not missing shots is an indicator of success. He needs to override that defensive mechanism in his head that tells him missing shots is the end all be all, because it is not. Shrinking the floor and making it so that your teammates have to deal with more defense because of your unwillingness to shoot the ball, making the defense easier on them, is the end all be all. See, that's what Ben Simmons needs to understand. This is chess, not checkers. You're telling yourself something that's not going to bring you to the promised land. Facing that weakness is going to bring you to the promised land. Doing what is most difficult for you, which is watching that ball bounce off the rim after shooting a three, or continuing to miss these free throws, and not hiding from the fact that getting to the line in and of itself is a good thing, because you're putting the opponent in foul trouble. Even if you miss the free throws, you've strategically helped remove the player that's defending you from the game. So the end-all be-all is not the ball bouncing off the rim. The end-all be-all is assuring that he gets a foul credited to his name. See, these are the type of things a good coach needs to embed in the kid, so that he will breathe, see what he needs to do in terms of chess, not checkers, override that training in his head that was put in him by somebody who embedded in him something in him, a thing that doesn't help him, through their pressure that they've placed on the kid. Because I know what it is. I know a lot of people be like, we don't want to speak to a person's mindset, but I will speak to the treatment that births the type of behavior that he's displaying, because I know what it is, and I'm not going to pretend like I don't. What I see there is a child that's been disciplined by someone or a community of people that have told him that if he misses shots, it's going to be a problem. Maybe they beat his ass. Maybe it was worse than that. But that's the type of behavior that he's displaying. Is that of somebody who has to keep it together on the outside, But behind his eyes, he can't tell you the hell that he's going through. That's what I read when I look at Ben Simmons. He can't tell you the hell that he's going through. And he knows he's letting his teammates down. He knows he's letting his coaching staff down. He knows he's letting whatever down. But most importantly, he's letting himself down because he can't override his defensive mechanisms to do what's necessary instead of doing what comes naturally, which is to adhere to the perfection that was instilled in him. That is actually not perfection at all, because what it really is an initiation of his own failure. To continue to do this is going to bring forth the wrong results. You got to shoot the ball. I don't care if you make it. I don't care if they told you you're going to miss the shot, they're going to do something terrible to you. You got to face those consequences, because what's even worse is continuing to go down this path of being seen as a worse player than you are, because you are having difficulty dealing with your own defensive parameters. Trust me, I know. I deal with it on a much lesser scale in my own life. And it wasn't anybody that beat anything into my head or disciplined me in a certain way. It was just my perception, my own perception, to be completely honest with you. But the outside world did not help. Because I'm telling you, if you have one of those type of minds where you see the world a certain way, or you perceive the world a certain way, it doesn't take as much to disrupt you as it may someone else who's a more simple mind. And that's the part that we all need to also absorb and understand. Not everybody takes everything the same way. Something that motivates you may traumatize the next guy based on how they're approaching the situation, based on how their mindset is, based on the trauma that they faced before you even got there, based on the secrets they can't tell you. You understand what I'm saying? It can create the unknown can be many things, a great many things. But one thing we need to understand about one another is we can't just apply a systematic discipline to each and every mind to say this person's going to react to the same thing that person is the same way. They may not. It may get the best out of one guy, but it may get the worst out of the next one. Ben Simmons is going to have to go unlearn some old discipline. That's what I know. That's what I know. All that other stuff I said before that, maybe I'm on point, maybe I'm not. But the fact of the matter is, he gonna have to unlearn some shit. You gotta be okay with shooting the ball and missing. You gotta be okay with getting to the line. And most importantly, you gotta work on your game. You gotta work on your mind, you gotta work on your game. There is something to be said about the display we show others, the way we allow ourselves to be seen. There's something to be said for that. When we walk around with our chest poked out in whatever way we do, and I'm not speaking about Ben Simmons now, I'm just talking about everybody, anybody who this applies to, including myself if it does. If we run around here with our chest poked out, like we don't have nothing to learn, or that everything that we're doing is the perfect way of doing things, believe you me, we may miss something. You just may miss something. Even if you ain't made a mistake in a long time, you may miss something. We got to continue to work on our craft, or whatever our craft may be. We got to continue to work on ourselves. Got to continue to try to perceive ourselves properly and allow others to provide the criticism that we can use constructively. Because if we rely on our own understanding, we shut everybody out. And we don't listen to people tell us what we can do to be better, or what we can do to help make whatever we're a part of better. Believe you me, failure comes next. In Ben Simmons' case, people are telling you, bruh, shoot the ball. Passing the rock is awesome. But just like a player who shoots too much overpassing is a bad thing. Just like a person who bricks every shot, a guy who doesn't attempt any, it's a bad thing. There has to be balance found in everything that we do. We have to find the yin and yang in everything that we approach. Basketball, obviously, no different. I used to be very, very frustrated with Kobe when he'd launch 1,000,000 shots. And when LeBron James came along, I appreciated LeBron James' game a bit more in some very key ways. The thing that frustrated me about my guy Kobe is that he wouldn't use the pass as a weapon to open up his shot. He would have 4 and 5 players collapsing on him, and he would still launch shots. And my thing was, yes, you can make those shots, sure. But if you pass the rock to Samaki Walker for a 15-footer, or you get the ball to Rick Fox for a corner 3, or you get Robert Horry a straightaway 3, or you catch Derek Fisher at the top of the elbow. If you can get those guys those shots, I don't care if they make them or miss them. What it will do is make the defense think Kobe may pass, and that will open up the floor for you to hit those same shots you're attempting with less defensive pressure. And that's what I used to be frustrated. It's not that I didn't like Kobe taking 25 shots. It's just I thought he could have got better shots if he would have taken 18 of them. They would have been better quality shots. He would have still made had the same scores, the same point total on less shots because he would have had less defensive pressure coming his way. And most importantly, he'd have made his teammates better, so we'd have had more assists. He'd have been better historically if he would have used the pass as a weapon. Well, Ben Simmons needs to do the literal opposite. Use the shot as a weapon. Just like a boxer uses the jab to set up his major punch or his major combination, you need to use the 3-point shot for the same thing. And the thing about it is, if guys leave you open, so be it. Because they leave every bad shooter open. But what they won't do is leave a bad shooter open forever if he starts hitting shots. And you got to look at it not as a game-to-game situation, but as a season-to-season type of situation. What I mean by that is you attempt 3 3-pointers in game 1, maybe game 2 you get back to your old ways. But every so often, they leave you open, you take the 3. You miss it, you miss it, you miss it, you miss it, you miss it. But eventually, you're going to make them pay, and you're going to get better at hitting open 3-point shots by taking those shots in real-time situations. What ends up happening after that is as the games progress, the defense stops leaving you open as much because they know that not only will you take that shot, but possibly make that shot. And in taking that shot, what you need to understand is even if you miss it, it has to be rebounded a certain way. See, a 3-point shot has to be rebounded a certain way. So that means you're taking the defense and you're making them react to the ball coming off the rim a certain way. And that is also a good thing because it keeps them honest as well. They don't know if you're going to take the shot. They don't know if you're going to pass it. They don't know how they have to position themselves to rebound. But if they know for a fact that you will not attempt the shot, all they have to do is play off of you. They don't have to worry about the ball rebounding off the rim further out. They can collapse in on the defense, or rather collapse in on your players, box them out, put pressure on them. You're going to pass them the ball, and they're going to have 100 people, or at least what feels like 100 people collapsing on them at the same time, just because you refuse to take a shot, not on that possession, but on any possessions leading up to that possession throughout the entire season. You see what I'm saying? You leave your team no dimension from that angle at all. While you're on the floor, they don't have to defend the 3-point arc at all with you back there. And that's bad for basketball. That makes it so that Joel Embiid has 8 turnovers in Game 7. You notice I didn't mention Joel Embiid's turnovers. They mattered, sure, but the floor is shrunk. Superstar don't have as much room to work with. It is what it is. And look, I brought up Markel Fultz at the beginning of this because I remember him having some of those similar issues with his shoulder. And it reflected poorly upon how he was able to play, etc. He was having issues. So off the court stuff that we didn't know about. They traded him to Orlando. He's rekindled his career. He's had some injury issues, but his upside is still very good because we've seen him play well and he fits in with what Orlando's doing. He's developing nicely. Joel Embiid had a tough time, even though, he's turned into a superstar. He hasn't been to a conference finals. That's crazy. Being as he's been an MVP candidate this year, all-star several times over, arguably a top 2-3 big man in the league. Clearly one of the most skilled players in all of basketball. Hasn't been to a conference finals in the easy East when everyone else seemingly has, more or less. All the playoff teams seemingly have. So that's one thing. You look at Jahlil Okafor's situation. He came into the league, obviously he had some limitations, but he ended up getting off to a very rocky start to his career. Had to get moved around before he found himself as a role player in New Orleans. Now, his upside is pretty solid. Nice role player, probably has a future in the league. All I'm saying is this. These were young players all going into the Philadelphia 76ers organization, all having issues of some sort that seemed to be beyond basketball. Seemingly the organization couldn't help them with. All on the organization's watch. I'm just looking at Philadelphia and I'm saying, look, you have problems and guys leave there and those problems go away. Simple as that. Is there something to that? I don't know. I know that Philadelphia it has a reputation for applying a lot of pressure. Their fans booed Santa Claus, booed Beyonce. They're known for booing their own players, stuff like that. It could be rough playing in Philly. That's understood. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Maybe. As I said, Brett Brown was coach early on. I thought that was a mistake leaving him on there, but also removing him abruptly from those young players who had never had any other coach but him and replacing him with Doc Rivers, a guy who's historically known for his teams collapsing in Game 7s and in playoff series where they give back leads and just really, really historical collapses, choke jobs. They bring him in. He doesn't apply confidence, it seems. I hate to put it like that, but it just seems like the guys that are under him tend to be frustrated. It didn't work in Clipperland. It didn't work in Orlando. It did work in Boston, but Boston had a special group and a great coaching staff underneath him as well. I don't know. It just seems like Philadelphia organization just presses the wrong buttons and they set the entire process up with the seed planted that losing is a means of gaining value. And I'm telling you, that precedent set did not help either. Bad juju, man. You're deliberately tanking. And as Stephen A. Smith said many times, taking money from the city of Philadelphia and the ticket holders and people who buy your paraphernalia, knowing that your intention is not to succeed short term, while taking their money from these various seasons. It's just, some could say it's wrong. A lot of fans were on board with it. I could see the strategy in it all. But it just, what are you doing to these guys' careers that played for your team during that time? What did you do for Brett Brown's legacy in making it so that you're deliberately losing on his watch? It's not a surprise that it failed. It's not a surprise that they haven't won a championship with this. You went about it in a way that some would say is just kind of not so right. I don't know. Anyway, this is one of the longest videos I probably made ever. It was just so much I wanted to say. It's still more, but honestly, it's too long. So yeah, man, forgive me, Ben Simmons, if I disrespected you and to your family and everybody, man. It's just I read into things a certain way, and I don't I don't pretend to not see things when I do. Maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree, but I feel like I'm sniffing up the right one when I speak to uh, what I'm seeing out there. I see a person who has to unlearn some things, man. Gonna have to overcome some childhood traumas. Real talk, real talk. And those traumas don't have to be in the form of something horrible. Because if you're a creative mind, you're a smart mind, and you see the game a certain way, which I think Ben Simmons does based on how he does view the game and how he passes as an art form, artists tend to have issues that a lot of people who are not artistic don't have. And we perceive the world a certain way. And sometimes we can find ourselves being traumatized not by what's actually happening, but how we perceive it. Our imagination, our artistic nature works against us. And in that circumstance, sometimes it can come out in some ways that make it look like we're clamming up, make it look like we don't know what we're doing, make it look like we're on autopilot. But really, we're just trying to manage something that's very difficult to manage. Maybe I'm only speaking for myself. Maybe you can't relate. But it is what it is, man. My name is BDL44. Thank you guys for watching.